One of my favorite things about this species that we all share is that even though at the most basal evolutionary instinctive level, pretty much every aspect of society is in some way about sex, we don't really like to talk about it that much. And by not that much, I mean like most of the time not at all. I mean, we've become a lot more open-minded over the decades, but do raise your hand if you've never stumbled into a blunt conversation about sex and been at least like a little bit uncomfortable. If I see any hands, I see liars. It is then no surprise that though they form a very essential part of human society, we don't really like to talk about sex workers. We like to keep them in the closet where the gimp suit is. We don't want to talk about them unless the context is already extremely raunchy. Five guys sitting late in the park or at the beach, already deep into the beer cans that they have been passing around each other. They might throw around like a porn recommendation or two, but you won't have this kind of conversation at a polite dinner party. This video is probably going to get hit by YouTube in some visible or invisible way because I just decided to talk about a subject matter that other people have decided we shouldn't talk about. But I am a big fan of giving credit where it's due, and so I have to say, sex workers, thank you for doing what you do. And I don't just mean like straight up prostitutes, even though they are at the front line of the sex industry as such. I mean everyone who works in the sex and pleasure industry. I mean strippers, I mean cam models, I mean porn people, I mean people who draw pornography stuff for others who have special fetishes that reality doesn't really accommodate. Thank you for doing what you do. I don't really know why, but we like to forget that sex is one of the primary motors of society. How many people you think lead healthy lifestyles that make them more productive in the marketplace just so they can fuck? How many great works of art you think were created just because some genius wanted to impress a member of the opposite sex? How many businesses that changed the world were started because someone wanted to be rich enough to basically just get pussy because he had money? The human sex drive is a very powerful thing. It leads to countless good and countless bad actions, and to harness it, to regulate it, to use it for the advancement of humanity as a species, no less than that is what sex workers do. Not only is it an honest living, it is the most honest of livings, because it deals directly with the most important biological imperative to dominate our psyche. It is in fact so honest that it is scary to us, which is why we keep it locked away. It's a window to one of the most intimate areas of our soul, and obviously you don't just want to share the most intimate areas of your soul with everyone, and not everyone is willing and able to have intimate areas of people's souls shared with them. People have an inbuilt need for intimacy, and that includes sexual intimacy, but very often their lifestyles just won't accommodate that. Take a high seas fisherman, one of the most dangerous professions that exist on the world. You have these people, they're out at sea for months, maybe they come back to shore to put their catch away and then they go back out, right? Fisherman then has shore leave at some point, exhausted mentally and physically still from the incredibly hard and long shifts that he's had to pull, but he's well paid. It's very difficult to build and maintain meaningful, intimate relationships if you are away from the place where the people that you have those relationships with are for most of the time, or even a significant portion of the time. The high seas fisherman doesn't want to try his luck by getting rejected at the bar by several different women. No, he just wants to fuck. He already does hard work at sea. He doesn't want to do hard work in his leisure time also. And that is why the red light district tends to be by the port. Market forces put it there. These men and women, I assume there's also women who do this, they just want the sex. That's all they want. Maybe they're into talking to the prostitute afterwards, but there's no magic stuff that surrounds it. They have put in the hard work, they got paid, and they are in a lifestyle that does not allow them to build and maintain meaningful relationships most of the time. And so I cannot see how it is anything but honest to sleep with them for money. But just the release is not the only thing that people in the sex trade do. They offer companionship to the lonely, helping them through tough times in their life or just through tough lives. They offer confidence and validation to those who have lost it or to those who never had it in the first place. They offer satisfaction to people whose needs cannot just be taken care of by the average person. How many, serious, just sexual deviants, normal people who have who are into some really, fucked up shit, didn't traumatize a person that they just sprung this on because instead they paid a prostitute who was willing to indulge them? How many women and also men do you think were not raped because the person who would have raped them because of the fucking reptile brain bullshit up in here went to a prostitute instead? How much happiness do you think old people have gotten from a call boy or a call girl making them feel young again in their old age? One of the very few things that my mother taught me to do is to respect prostitutes. They put themselves on the line to protect humanity from the dark side of human sexuality, and also very often they make people happy. The sex trade gives happiness and comfort and satisfaction to hundreds of millions of people every year. And if you add in all the stuff that isn't just straight up prostitution pay for sex, you hit the billions easily. Raise your hand if you've never seen any pornography. If I see any hands, once again, I see liars. You've all done it, you've all watched the porn, don't even fucking try to lie to me. You can pretend all you want, and I think it's time that we thank the people who make it. Because in essence, they do the exact same thing as prostitutes. They satisfy some of people's most basal needs, and sometimes they satisfy people's dark basal needs. They, alongside their colleagues in the real world, create a safe and a positive and a good environment for people to explore the things that they enjoy, that they need, and that complete them. Because, repeat after me, making people repress their sexuality always leads to problems aside from just being pointless in the first place. As long as they're not hurting anyone, let people have their fetishes and their sexual orientations and whatever the fuck they want to do. And sure, do I find some guy throwing money at some cam girl so she gives him a little bit of affection pathetic? Yeah, I kinda do. But I shouldn't. That's just my own personal bias showing itself in an emotional reaction. Morally, there's nothing wrong with that. As a matter of fact, I think it's a good thing. She got paid to perform a service that she performs voluntarily, and he got some sort of level of satisfaction or emotional comfort that he wanted out of that. Oh, it might be a bloke doing it for a girl, a bloke doing it for a bloke, a girl doing it for a girl, a Tomahawk missile doing it for an attack helicopter. It doesn't really matter. It's not a problem so long as it's consensual. Which is exactly where the problems start. The fact that the sex trade generally happens in the shadows, the illegal shadows, more often than not, means that things happen there which maybe shouldn't. Prostitution is a pretty fucking dangerous job to have for anyone. And let's be honest, it's not always as simple as this is a person who is consensually willing to sell their body. Because they're not always willing. Sex trafficking is alive and well, and it's far from the only problem that plagues the sex industry. In countries where prostitution is illegal, prostitutes are very easy targets for their johns and their pimps and all the other terminology that I'm not necessarily familiar with. What are they gonna do? Call the cops? But even in countries where prostitution is legal and it's, more or less poorly regulated in a way that may not necessarily make sense because lawmakers found it more important to placate moralists who are never actually going to go to a prostitute, or who do go to prostitutes and just don't tell anyone, than actually create regulation and legislation that ensure the safety of the people working in that industry, combined with the fact that, we don't really like to talk about it or to look at it too closely. it happens that some pretty dark business practices get to be established there, and nobody really cares because the only people who know about them are inside the industry, and if you try to reach outside of the industry from inside of the industry, it's a dark industry and people don't like it. So just take some girl from Eastern Europe or Asia or wherever, put her on a truck, put her in some Western country where she doesn't speak the language, she doesn't understand the complex bureaucracy, scare her to death. We're using means of like psychological violence and often just actual violence, and now she has to live in this house, and all she has to do is have sex with people for money, which not really something she would have chosen to do, but she's in this situation now and she doesn't see a way out. There isn't a clear line where the world of legitimate business ends and the world of organized crime begins. People are messy and complicated, and a lot of them are cunts and a lot of them are easy to manipulate. And if you're gonna have an industry that does not afford proper and good protections to the people employed there, shit will go down. Imagine if going to a restaurant was being treated the same way as going to a prostitute was. The comparison is better than you might think. It's a basic human need that is usually taken care of at home, in private. But now, right now, you wanna go out because you want something special, or because you just don't want to put in the effort. You think the food industry would be a pleasant place to work at? Just a, quick side note here, it already isn't. Crime is not inherently intertwined with prostitution. The thing is, if you push something into the shadows, instead of having it be legal and regulated, you will have criminals running those businesses because criminals do crime. And such problems are not exclusive to the meat trade side of things. There's a lot of pressuring, extortion, business malpractice on the porn side of the industry as well. And once again, because it's impolite in society to not consider literally anything that comes out of that industry to be tainted in the first place, even if it is completely kosher and fine and good, the things that come out that aren't so good are treated as unsurprising and easily dismissed. Blood comes out your arsehole, it's not as concerning to most people as if when blood comes out your mouth, even though it should be. Seriously, if you have blood coming out your arsehole, it's probably just a hemorrhoid. Please do consult a physician anyway. And one of the biggest problems with people being forced, especially into the porn industry, is that it can easily ruin their life. If they ever find their way out of that industry in the first place, that is. And not just, in the obvious emotional way that this might traumatize you forever and destroy your psyche, but also just plain old career-wise. If you were in porn, 99% of cases, you're not gonna make it to head surgeon. Probably not even gonna be like a doctor. You might be able to get a foothold in the non-porn entertainment industry, but they take anyone. And there you'll have to be willing to humiliate yourself and to show your tits or your cock all the time. And that is obviously a shame and kind of hypocritical the way we treat it. If you're a young person and you see that as a potential side gig that you could do to make money to, eat and stuff, you should be able to do that as a side gig to make a little extra money and be able to eat stuff. And there shouldn't be any consequences for you down the road. If I, a young person, take a job bussing tables at a local diner, nobody's gonna find out in the future and then say, oh, you're fired because of morals and ethics. Same scenario, I have this same job and later I do become head surgeon. My boss finds out that I used to bus tables. They're not gonna tell me to go bus tables in the hospital cafeteria. It's not how that works. But no, if they find out I used to, dance on a pole or, jerk off in front of a webcam for people who paid me on the internet, suddenly my medical degree is no longer as valid. This is also the point where I got a bit carried away with doing the notes for this video and the scripts. So I sort of did a part 2-ish that's a video in its own that's gonna, I don't know when I'm gonna make it. Maybe Monday, or maybe in a month or 2, or 10. We live in an unprecedented age for the sex industry. It's becoming a legitimate thing and just another part of life in many parts of the world. It's being pulled out of the shadows and into the light. The guilt and the shame are slowly falling away from it. and we are beginning to see the humanity of the people who work in these industries and the service that they do for society. Regulations being put in place, monopolies that are used to exert power over people are falling apart. There's a whole renaissance going on in like the porn industry where you have, you know, just regular men and women doing the thing in their bedroom and then uploading it to Pornhub. And then they make money with that, which is exactly what YouTube did with more traditional entertainment formats and big media monopolies. And just a quick thing, if you're one of the people who does this, who I don't know, maybe one of them is watching this video, maybe spread this meme in your industry a little bit. Please learn how to do noise reduction in Audacity. You just Google it, it's easy tutorials, it's really easy to do, it massively increases the audio quality of your work. Audio is more important than video anyway. Probably in your industry a little less so than in mine, but please do that. I think it would very much improve a lot of things. We as a society are becoming more and more accepting of sex and sexuality, but also of sex and sexuality in a professional context. We're still a long way to treating strippers and prostitutes and cam boys and cam girls with the respect that we ought to treat them with, but we're taking strides. So yeah, thank you very much for watching this more rambly video. I know a lot of people in the comments have been complaining that it's been like very tightly paced and everything, so I thought, hey, why not just have a ramble again? Because that always increases quality. Like, comment, subscribe, do all the things. Actually, if you're like a sex worker, I'd be very interested in hearing some of the experience that you have. Maybe put them in the comments. Like positive and negative stuff, opinions you have over certain aspects of the industry, maybe the legislature in the area where you live. Share this to your relevant communities, but do not spam them. That's all. That's the one I forgot. Maybe buy some of the merchandise that I have in my store. Consider supporting me on Subscribestar or Patreon, but no rush. And in that spirit, let me just get another thing. You remember last week when I complained about the books, that these were bigger than the others and it didn't always make sense and all that? This is even worse, and I realized this like yesterday. You have in all of the first 7 books, the third one is on the desk right now because I'm reading it, is the title is big here, and it's in color, and then you have the name of the author, which is actually 2 people, down here. It's Caliban's War, James S.A. Corey, except with the 8th book. The 8th book, it does it right on the front, like all the other ones, but here, on the spine, the name of the author is written in, like, color and big, and the name of the book is small and white, and that just really, it just, ooh. And see you around, cunts.